What's going on, Imperials? It's Emperor Cubone here. Part of the appeal of Pokémon is that they are all different, so no matter your inclination, you can find ones that appeal to you. For the most part, sometimes there are Pokémon that are so similar to each other that it makes it difficult to really tell them apart. Or at least makes you wonder, did we really need both of these? So let's take a look at certain similar Pokémon and determine what we can do to make them stand on their own so people don't just get fed up with trying to choose and give up on them completely. So, here are the top 6 Pokémon in need of some distinction. Number 6. Volbeat and Illumise. Gen 3 introduced double battles, so it's no surprise that Hoenn has some Pokémon that are paired off. What is surprising is the fact that they wasted 2 whole slots on these lackluster bug types. Volbeat and Illumise are pretty forgettable Pokémon, and even more forgettable when you can barely tell them apart. Did you know that they have the exact same stats, except for their attacks being inverted? What's the point of them even being separate if they're gonna fill the same roles? And they both have the Prankster hidden ability, so there's that. I realize that there might be some competitive differences between them, but I won't really be taking that into account too much on this list. It mostly has to do with how humanity at large could actually care to distinguish that these Pokémon are individuals. For example, I know that Volbeat gets Tail Glow, and sharply raising special attack can be great, until you remember that it's Volbeat's worst attack by a wide margin, so it's not as impressive as when Manaphy does it. So, that being said, I have a very simple solution for these two, and that is to give them extra types. They are clearly Firefly-based Pokémon, so I would give Volbeat the Fire typing, and I would turn Illumise into a Lightning Bug and give it the Electric type. Again, I'm not actually saying these types would improve their longevity or viability in combat, but it would help keep track of them mentally, and actually might have some people find them to be cooler so that they don't have to stink up the bottom of the barrel for otherwise great and memorable bug types in Hoenn. Number 5. Victreebel and Vileplume. Oddish and Bellsprout were counterparts right from the very beginning, when you could only get one for whatever version you had. And it makes sense, they are both grass poison lines with 3 stages that evolve with a stone. And that is the point of most version exclusives, to provide variety without actually having you miss out on something just for picking the wrong version. Most of the time. But that necessitates these Pokémon being quite similar, so it's hard to know what the big deal is between having multiple Pokémon in the first place. With Vileplume and Victreebel, the most striking difference that I could find was that Vileplume gets the possibility of Drain Punch, and I'm pretty sure that's just because it has arms and the other one doesn't. So, how can we make them different enough for people to get excited to use one or the other? Well, it's hard to do since seemingly a branched evolution could even get the job done. They do both share the Chlorophyll ability after all. And they share the same base stat total, but the distribution is different, with giving Victreebel higher physical attack, again, without arms, over Vileplume's higher special attack. So, I would suggest Victreebel being allowed to get stronger level up moves to help it work better. I realize it can get Power Whip and Leech Life and such, but those are egg moves, so if you just picked one up in the wild, you would never really be able to use it the way it should. Maybe it could be better now in Gen 8 with TRs and the like, but we'll never know because it's not allowed to exist there. As for Vileplume, it could get a lot more special poison moves since it's pretty limited. And it can already have the Effect Spore ability, so I think we could also give it the move Rain Dance as well as Weather Ball. This would not only reduce Fire's power, instead of increasing it like Sun, but it would also give a Water-type move to handle those Fire types. Vileplume needs to lean into the special, but mostly Poison side, since otherwise it wouldn't even be able to distinguish itself from its branched evolution, since Bellossom ditched the toxicity. Maybe further cranking up their specialties would take these Pokémon further apart to actually make them worth noticing separately. Or at the very least, we could try and bring back that beta branched evolution for the Bellsprout line. Number 4. Tauros and Buffalont. The Unova region is notorious for introducing Pokémon that are suspiciously similar to other past ones we've already seen. And when we saw Buffalont, we all got excited for the fabulous new evolution to the Gen 1 Tauros. Except that didn't happen. So now we have Tauros and Tauros when it needs its haircut as separate entries. Now, this is not to disparage Buffalont at all, because I really like the thing, and it actually is pretty good. But that doesn't mean that the common man out there doesn't understand why there are two similar bovine-like Pokémon. First of all, these Pokémon have the exact same base stat total as if they were branched evolutions. And while some of the stats are identical, or at least close, Tauros is much faster, while Buffalont takes most of that and moves it into its bulk, which makes sense with its massive dew. And of course, Tauros does have the distinction of sharing a special relationship with Miltank in that they breed with each other, only being a single gender. So you might be wondering if it's even necessary, but again, most people don't dig deep into the stats or mechanics of these creatures, and instead just choose whether they want 3 tails or not. If I had my way, I would give Buffalont a unique ability that boosts power of head-based moves, like Headbutt, Iron Head, or even its signature move, Head Charge. I realize that they already have the general cap of abilities currently, but it'd be great to have an emphasis on its most defining feature that lets it be even scarier and more powerful. Because honestly, most people will just default to the one that they've known for the longest. And since Tauros is so fast, why not? Even if Buffalont is slower, it could pack even more of a punch with a unique head ability to let people bother choosing it in the first place. Number 3. Oricorio. Okay, I realize this isn't exactly like the others on the list, since Oricorio is simply different forms of the same Pokémon, but I still think they could be more different than they are. Oricorio has a different form based on what island you find it, or more accurately, it's because of the different types of nectar that can be found on these islands. I think that is a big reason for why these forms are largely an aesthetic difference, because you can find this nectar and change your Oricorio at any time you please. Really, the only difference is the move Revelation Dance that changes its type based on the form Oricorio has, but that's it. The rest of the moves are all flying or normal, so really the only reason to pick a certain form is which dance style you like best. Other forms of Pokemon at least have some alternate moves between them, so why couldn't Oricorio have just one slot reserved for an actual move from whichever type you've selected? It would be great to have just that little bit of variety and let you know that there is actual strategy in changing form. It could work just like Rotom, since it does have the same thing, and whenever it changes to a different form, it just forgets that typed move that it learned. So I don't see why Oricorio couldn't do the same, just because it's easier to change. I think that's the simplest way to make it matter more which style of Oricorio you're going to use, and add just a little bit of flair to those dance moves. Number 2. Slowbro and Slowking. I'm not saying that Slowking is bad or useless in any way, even though I do prefer Slowbro if I'm being honest. But you've got to admit, it's a little weird, right? I mean, the point of branched evolutions is to offer up something that you couldn't have gotten from the other form. But Slowking and Slowbro share the same typing and the same base stat total with identical distribution except for swapped defenses. I'm pretty sure their movesets are nearly identical as well. So why exactly did they make this a separate Pokemon? At least when Poliwhirl uses the King's Rock, Politoed is a pure water type versus the fighting type Poliwrath. And even just recently with the new Galarian forms for this family, everyone was excited for their differences. And granted, the stats did diverge a little more, and they got some sweet new abilities, but we all thought that Slowking was going to be Psychic and Dark, but nope, it's exactly the same as Slowbro yet again. So how do we make these Pokemon warrant their own existence? Well, I think retconning Galarian Slowbro to be part Dark type would be a good start. There's no reason that it should have been Poison when it only gets a single Poison move in its arsenal, and even with that, its new signature move is Psychic anyway. The original supposedly got Smart from Toxins too, but it's not a Poison type. As for the regular crop, I would just suggest diversifying their moves more. Maybe giving Slowbro Shell Smash or something, just so that there are more significant differences in deciding between them other than just where you want the shell to be. Or we could at least move more points into Slowbro's physical defense, since it doesn't look like we'll be revisiting the glory of the impenetrable Mega anytime soon. Number 1. Plussel and Minon. I've heard many people decry the persistence of each region having their own Pikachu-like critter running around. Although I will say they've done a better job in recent generations in setting them apart from each other by adding in extra types. But things weren't so lucky back in the day when they introduced 2 of the Pikachu clones at the same time with Plussel and Minon. I do like the idea of oppositely charged ions coming to life, but these Pokemon are by far the most similar to any other one out there, because they're almost identical to each other while also being like a whole other class of adorable creatures. But what can we do to possibly set them apart from each other? Once again, I am not a competitive player, but first of all, if we want to make these Pokemon relevant, we probably need to buff their stats. They already have basically the same, it's just that Plussel has 10 more points in both attacks, and Minon has 10 more points in both defenses. So I say we crank that up. If Plussel were clearly offensive, better at rapid strikes, and Minon were better for sitting around longer, then people would maybe be able to take note. Not up to mega levels or anything, but an extra 20 to 30 points couldn't hurt. And it does make sense for positive to be on the attack, and negative would be more inclined for defense. It would also help a lot to mix up some of the moves that they can learn because, as of right now, they get the exact same TMs, move tutors, and the only variations in their level up movesets are similar but slightly off moves, with the only real consequences being whether you want Trump Card or Last Resort. So if we could give Plussel some simple coverage moves like maybe Disarming Voice or Power Gym, or even something random like Synchronoise, just so we could give it some kind of coverage outside of what every Pikachu clone already gets. As for Minon, it does get the Volt Absorb hidden ability, so I would suggest giving it the niche moves of Ion Deluge to make normal types electric, or Electrify, which makes all moves electric, so that Minon could heal itself whenever it wants. Or at the very least, they could both get access to Parabolic Charge, which would help them stay alive for longer than they usually do now. That isn't too much, and it's not as flashy as adding a new type or something, but that makes me think that it's actually doable, and help lift these Pokemon to a status where you would finally care to know the difference between these polarizing Pikachu pretenders. So, those are the Pokemon I believe to need the most tweaking to stand out. Which Pokemon do you have trouble telling apart? Let me know down in the comments. Also be sure to leave a like, share this video, and subscribe so that you too can become an Imperial today. And we'll see you around next time!